Welcome, everybody, to a special Crossfire. Today, we have the pleasure of having two very special guest panelists that will help us with today's theme. Today's theme is Moshiach and Geulah, and we have the pleasure of having two very special panelists. We have the pleasure of having Rabbi Levi Garelik, the Dean of SichosOnline.com, author, and we have the honor of having Rabbi Baruch Hecht, Shliach of the Rebbe to Brentwood, California. Before we begin taking the questions that each and every one of you have sent, we will ask Rabbi Garelik if he could take a minute or two to set the tone of our Crossfire today by giving us a bit of an overview of the whole theme of Mashiach and Geulah. Rabbi Garelik, the Chavid Gadol.
First of all, Shalom Aleichem to all of you, and welcome to this beautiful gathering regarding Geulah Mashiach. I'll just start off with a cute little story that there was once a company. For example, there's a company called Coca-Cola. I'm sure you know that Coca-Cola is a big company. And Coca-Cola has many, many, many factories in the United States and in the world where they produce Coca-Cola. And then there's an office. The office in America happens to be in Atlanta, Georgia. When you look at any Coca-Cola bottle, it'll say Coca-Cola, Atlanta, Georgia. But really, it could have been made anywhere in the United States, even a couple blocks away from your house. So there are certain people who are sitting in the factories, the workers, and then there are certain people who sit in the headquarters office and they run the show from there. The story goes that one time there was the CEO of a big company and he wants to go and visit one of the factories, and they hardly go to the factories. So he picks up the phone and he calls up the manager of the factory and he tells him, "Manager, here's the CEO of the company. In 10 days from now, I'm coming to visit your factory." The manager gets all, nervous because the CEO is coming to visit the company. He sends out a memo to all the people in the factory. "Guys, in 10 days from now, the CEO is coming. Everybody better behave and make sure you're doing your things right." Okay. Goes by 10 days. Big CEO comes and he shows up in the factory. And he's walking around with the manager, and everybody's by the machines and working and doing. And the CEO is looking around, like the big boss. At one point, he goes and he sees that there's one guy who's standing over there by the door, not doing anything, just looking at the ceiling, The CEO gets angry, and he goes over to this guy and with the manager, and he says, "You, why are you standing here not doing anything? What kind of a business is this? In my company, people have to work. There's no such thing as standing and not doing anything." And everybody's watching this. They want to see where this is going. And then all of a sudden, he says, the guy wants to explain himself. But the CEO, the Grace Mensch, says, no explanations. "How much do you make a month?" The guy says, $1,000. So he says, $1,000? He pulls out from his pocket, counts $1,000, gives him. He says, "Take $1,000 and leave." The guy takes $1,000 and leaves. And then the CEO turns around to the manager, and everybody's listening. "What kind of manager are you? Guy standing here not doing anything. What kind of business is this in my factory?" And the manager turns to the CEO and he says, "Your Majesty, the CEO of the company, I am sorry to disappoint you. This guy that was standing here, he was a pizza delivery boy. He doesn't work here in this company. He just delivered a pizza 15 minutes ago. and he was waiting for his $15 for the pizza, and he walked out with $1,000. And now the CEO looked like a narische mensch. What happened? What was his mistake? He thought he was going to show he's the big boss, and it turned out that he made the biggest mistake in his life, because now nobody has any respect for him. What was his mistake? He did not learn Tanya. He did not learn what the Alter Rebbe says as the basics of Torah Chassidus. You know what the Alter Rebbe says? The Alter Rebbe says a person has a brain. The Alter Rebbe says a person has a heart. And when a person gets angry, where does that come from? The brain or from the heart? Of course, from the heart. The brain thinks, wait a minute, should I really get angry or not necessarily? Maybe let me try to understand what is happening here. Had he used what the Alter Rebbe says, that the brain has to overcome the heart, let's try to understand what is happening. And then I won't get angry. I'll be fine with everything. If this guy, instead of getting angry at this delivery boy, he would have said, tell me, why are you standing there not doing anything? And the guy would answer, oh, because I'm a pizza delivery boy. Everything would have been fine. He didn't do that. He let his emotions work before his brain. Moshiach and everything else in Torah works the exact same way. Many people have questions on the Eibishter, on Halacha, on Shabbos, on Tefillin. The reason why they have these questions is not because they're bad people. It's because they don't know what it is. We have to use not only our emotions as, this makes no sense. How could this be? No. That's not how you ask a question. A question you ask with the seichel. We want to understand. And therefore, we are here today because normally Moshiach is something which, unfortunately, throughout history has not been learned. When you look around at all the Sfarim that there are in a yeshiva, especially also not Lubavitch yeshivas, there'll be about Gemara and about Hilchas Shabbos and about this halacha and that halacha, etc. How many Sfarim do you have on Hilchas Shabbos? Thousands. How many Sfarim do you have on Hilchas Yom Tov? Hundreds. How many Sfarim do you have on the damages and things? Hundreds. How many Sfarim do you have on Mashiach? Almost zero, almost nothing. It's a subject that wasn't learned. Once we learn a subject, then it becomes a whole different story. And that's why I'm sure that you have seen a picture of the Rebbe holding this booklet, right? A famous picture of the Rebbe holding this booklet, because in this booklet, the Rebbe put in the ABC of the halachas of Moshiach. And when somebody learns that, it's a total different Moshiach. And 99% of the questions that a person may have are taken care of. So, what we're going to try to do today is discuss a little bit the concept of Moshiach, but all taken from the sources of how the Rebbe explains it to us based on the Rambam and the Gemara, etc., etc. So, Rebbe Leibel, let's go ahead.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Gerelik. Let us begin with the Crossfire. Being that we just heard from Rabbi Gerelik, I'm going to pass the question along to Rabbi Hecht. Is there a proof in Torah that says who Mashiach can be?
Oh, as Rabbi Gerelik pointed out, the Rambam in Perek Aleph of Hilchas Malachim lists off, and Yud Aleph and Yud Beis, the last two chapters, which are also called Hilchas Mashiach, the Rambam describes who and what Mashiach is going to be. He quotes from the Torah there in the prophecy of Bilam specifically that describes what Mashiach is going to be like. And then he continues on in Perek Yud Beis, Perek Aleph and Yud Beis, to actually make a specific description of what Mashiach is going to be and what it's going to look like. And if you really think about it, honestly, when you talk about that, the Rambam says that Yelamed Torah is Kala Kuli, that Mashiach is going to be somebody who's going to teach Torah to the entire Jewish people. So if you think about the 800 years, 800 plus years, almost 900 years, that the Rambam wrote these words, you could imagine that the idea of Yelamed Torah's Kala Kulai is more poetic than it is real, because there was nobody in the last 900 years who had the capacity to be able to be Malamed this Kala Kulai, teach the entire Jewish nation at once. When Mefuzar and Mefayed Ben Amim was spread out throughout the nations, and so therefore there is no one person that could possibly teach as Kala Kulai, all until the Rebbe. So if you look at the criteria that the Rambam lays out in Hilchos Malachim, based on the psukim and the discussion of the prophecy of Bilam, it seems to indicate, you don't have to be a genius to say that this points all at the Rebbe.
Thank you very, very much. Rabbi Gerelik, people say we are living in the times of Moshiach. If so, where is he already?
So first, as Rabbi Hecht said beautifully, we have to understand what are the times of Mashiach. What are those times? Could any time be the time of Mashiach? And the answer is no. The way, obviously you want the source in Torah. If you look in the Zohar makes it very, very clear that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was over 2,000 years ago, approximately. And he believed every single day that Mashiach is coming. Like every Jew, like Moshe Rabbeinu, like everybody believed that Mashiach is coming in their times. And still in all, the Zohar makes it very clear that there are two options how Mashiach could come. Either he could come, it's also based on the Gemara. Either Mashiach will come miraculously. In other words, it's not the times for Mashiach, it's nothing. But because the Yidden merited it, it came at that time. Like, let's say, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, the time of David HaMelech, whatever. Then there is a time natural, not miraculous, when the Rebbe set the system of the creation of the world. On that first day, the Rebbe already had in mind when Mashiach is coming. When is that? The Zohar makes it very, very clear. Just like it took the Eibishter 6 days to create the world, and the seventh he rested. Why 6 days? Why not 4? Why not 10? Why not 20? That's a total different conversation. But we all know that the Eibishter did it in 6 days. At the end of the 6th day, in the afternoon, he created Adam. And then he went into Shabbos. Says the Zohar, 1,000 years for man, as it says in Tehillim, is like 1 day for the Eibishter. Just like it took the Eibishter 6 days to create the world, and the seventh he rested, it will take humanity to develop planet Earth 6,000 years, and then we'll go into Shabbos, like you said yesterday in benching, Yom Shekuloi Shabbos Umnucha L'chayo Elam. So when is the times of Mashiach? Friday afternoon. Just like we prepare Friday afternoon for Shabbos, so too in the big picture, Friday afternoon is after the year 5,500, because that's already the second part of the day. That is when it starts. And that's what, when you look at the big picture, you'll see that after the year 5,500, that is when the Baal Shem Tov came, and he came to explain Torah Sachsidus, which is the Pnimius of Torah. And that's when we had the outburst of modern technology. Did you notice that you have something that your Zaydis did not have? Your Zaydis, when they were in Russia and they wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, they couldn't. And even if they were able to, they had to take a horse and wagon and a boat, and maybe once in a lifetime, people went to Eretz Yisrael. But the Navi says that when Mashiach will come, we're going to go every Shabbos to Eretz Yisrael. Every Rosh Chodesh, we're going to go to Eretz Yisrael. How is that possible? So for 5,500 years, when people read these psukim, it was a nevuah, it was a fantasy. Yeah, we're going to go to Eretz Yisrael. Who knows how? Today, you get onto a plane in a few hours, you're in Eretz Yisrael. So we are the only ones that have this. And nobody from your Zaydis until Adam Rishon, nobody had this. This is the best, one of the best proofs that these are the times. If what Yeshaya Navi said, that we're going to go every Shabbos to Eretz Yisrael, is a reality, that's the times of Mashiach. And I could go on and giving more examples, but at least now we understand why we are in the times of Moshiach. And most importantly, this Zoom class or whatever program we use is the best proof. Your Zaidi, when he was a little boy and he had to be stuck at home, that's it. If his father didn't teach him, he was gone. And most fathers at that time didn't know how to learn. They didn't know how to teach their children. They needed a malamed. Today, everybody's stuck at home. Big deal. Everybody could sit and learn Torah day and night with all the teachers in the world. This is the times of Mashiach. Beautiful.
Thank you very, very much. Rabbi Hecht, I'm going to, if I could ask both presenters, I'm going to try to keep the answers to 60 seconds. If you need an extra minute, let me know. We want to try to get to as many questions as possible. Rabbi Hecht, there's a series of questions here which probably go under the same category. So I'm going to choose two of them. Question is, will the world change when Mashiach comes? Will current technology still exist when Mashiach comes? There's a lot of series of these style questions. What will happen when Mashiach will come? So I chose those two. Will the world change when Mashiach comes? And will current technology still exist? Oh, yes. Go for it.
Hi. Am I being timed?
Starting now.
Okay. First of all, Rabbi Geulah held up a booklet called Dvar Malchus, which you've all seen. And in the Dvar Malchus, there's a very, very famous sikha of the Rebbe, which is titled Shnei Tkufas B'Yemos HaMashiach. And Rabbi Geulah also pointed out very beautifully that there's two ways for Mashiach to happen. And the Rebbe brings that from the Rambam with many, many proofs and with tremendous analysis, where the Rebbe points out that there's two ways for this to happen. Eventually, there's an event called Olam Haba or Olam Atchiyah, and there's a machlokes Rambam Ramban, and the Rebbe ultimately says that there really isn't the machlokes between the Rambam and the Ramban, which we're not going to get into now. And at that point is what we always talk about, where we become angelic, or our bodies evolve into a place where it becomes totally holy, spiritual, etc. But the Rebbe says that Yemos HaMashiach also can happen but as Rabbi Geulah pointed out, an evolutionary process. It can happen step by step, where there's a first stage where Olam Kimin Hagei Noyeg, as the Rambam says, the world continues to exist as it is, and that the only difference between Olam Haz and Yemos HaMashiach is Shibud Malchus. And therefore, the Rebbe says there that right now we are in the beginning stages, for sure, of the first era of Yemos HaMashiach. We're living in a world today where we're seeing incredible advances in technology. We're able to study Torah like this. I'm sitting in Los Angeles. Rabbi Geulah is sitting in Brooklyn. Some of you are in Brooklyn. Others are going to be watching it from all over the world, all at the same time. It's the most incredible thought that could possibly cross your mind. We have smartphones, which you are either smart or dumb phones, whatever you want to call them. But the fact of the matter is that you can have communication and information from all over the world in real time, instantaneously. And all of that is an indication of the way the world is going forward, and you're watching miraculous things happen, even though we're still living Olam Kimin Hagei Noyeg. The world is still conducting itself in the same fashion as it was before. So therefore, the real answer to your question is, more importantly, what are you and I going to make of it? Not what's going to happen, because what's going to happen means we're sitting with our arms folded, waiting for it to happen to us. What the Rebbe told us, Chav Ches Nisan Tavshin Nun Aleph, is that we can't sit and wait for it to happen to us. The Rebbe gave it over into our hands and said, Tut als was ihr kennt. We have to do our part. Every single one of us, you and I, have to do every single thing we can so as to create what will be currently the first stages of Yemos HaMashiach and bring it all the way to the end stages. Tchias HaMesim and miraculous things. And I saw one of the questions was, candies growing on trees. Fine, why not? Why not candies growing on trees? Nothing wrong with that. The question is that once the candies are growing on the trees, will we really want candies? Because at that point, we're going to want only Ruchnius. We're going to want to be connected to Hashem. The Yesik is Kol Olam and Ladas Hashem Belvad. We're only going to want to know God. That's what we're going to be about at that point. So the real answer to all of these questions is not what will the world be like, because the world is already there. We are already in Yemai Mashiach. We've already started the first kuf of Yemai Mashiach. It's already started. There's peace in the world. Anywhere in the world, a Jew can study Torah. Whoever imagined when I was a kid that there would ever be a time, if you would have told me there's going to be a time that Russia is going to be filled with Yidden in big centers, studying Torah, learning Torah day and night, with yeshivas and gigantic centers, and that there'll be Yidden from Russia donating money to the rest of the world. If you would have told me that when I was a kid, I would have told you, of course, because Moshiach will already be here by then. So there's nothing to talk about. So therefore, when it's actually happening in front of our eyes, that means Moshiach is we're already here in the first Kufi of Moshiach. Now the question is, are we going to bring the Geulah? The real question we need to ask ourselves is not so much, what is the world going to be like? Instead, we should ask ourselves, what are we doing, you and I? And anyone that's ever heard me speak knows that when I talk, I'm talking to myself. You're just listening. What am I doing today to make it happen the way that Rebbe wants, to bring us to the era of
Thank you, Rabbi Hecht. We're going to move on to another topic. There are several questions that came in regarding Tchias HaMesim. So I don't think we'll get to all, but I'll get to one or two. Rabbi Gerelik. It says that our neshama was in a previous body before it came into ours. If my neshama was in several bodies throughout its lifetime, what will happen when Tchias HaMesim will take place? What body will my neshama go to? Does that mean that not everyone will get up for Tchias HaMesim? All yours.
First of all, everyone is going to get up for Tchias HaMesim. Everyone. Even some that you may have read somewhere that they're not, everybody's going to get up at Tchias HaMesim. Number one. Number two, the concept is very simple as follows. When the Rebbe created the world, he created a certain amount of neshamas. How many? 600,000 neshamas. This is how many the Rebbe created. And that's why in the Torah, you'll always see the number 600,000, 600,000. Each neshama has hundreds and perhaps thousands of sparks. Every person does not have a complete neshama. Every person has a spark. So you could have 600 neshamas, which are the general neshamas, and then you could have millions of sparks. So every single yid has a spark. Now, these sparks, some of them came down into the body finished all the work, and the spark goes back into its place where it belongs. Sometimes that spark did not finish everything, so it splits even more. It goes down and gets fixed, and then it goes back up, which means that when Moshiach will come, any of these millions and millions of sparks is going to go back into that body, and we will see the whole neshama. And that's why you see that there are certain Yidden who are from the Shevet of Reuven. Some people are from the Shevet of Shimon. Some people are from the Shevet of Yisachar. And the same thing is going to work with the neshamas. There's a neshama klalis, and it has thousands of sparks. Then there's the big neshama, which is the neshama of Moshiach, and that one includes all the neshamas. But that's another whole conversation. But the bottom line is, yes, they're all going to get up, and each one is its own spark.
If I could stick with you, Rabbi Gerelik.
Wait, let me just add one quick thought to that.
Yes,
the
Rabbi.
Best example, the perfect, Rabbi Gerelik's answer was, of course, perfect, which doesn't surprise me in the least. But I just want to add for purposes of perspective, we have a thing that we figured out. It's called DNA. And people look at now today you can do DNA testing, and you can figure out who fits in each person's DNA. And you can see people that fit into your gene pool. Even though there are different people that fit into your gene pool, no two people have an exact and identical DNA to each other. You may be in the same gene pool, you may be very close to that gene pool, but no two people have an actual identical DNA. Everything that happens in Gashmias is a reflection of the Ruchnias. So just like it's that way in our physical DNA, it's that way in our spiritual DNA. And so the 600,000, the Shamas Klolius, break into millions and millions and millions of tiny little souls. In just the same way now that if you were walking down the street with your cousin, or somebody knew your cousin and bumped into you and said, by the way, are you related to that guy because you look just like him? And you go, oh, yeah, that's my cousin. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach reveals himself, that people are going to walk down the street and they're going to see you in a neshama, and they're going to go, oh, I think you're part of that DNA gene pool, aren't you? You're probably a reincarnation of that guy down the block. He's probably 6 lives before you because you look just like him. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hecht. Rabbi Ehrlich, if I could just turn to you, because there's another question which is similar to the previous one I asked. Will everyone die and have Tchias HaMesim? And when will Tchias HaMesim happen? Before or after Mashiach comes?
No, not everyone will have to die. If we say every day in davening, every day, in the end of Shmoneh Esrei, 3 times a day, in the last part, in the Geulah Rotzon, v'nafshiv ke'ofor lakoil tihya psach libi b'serasecha. You remember you say this in davening? What does that mean? I should be as humble as dust, and then I will be able to learn Torah properly. Which means, from here we see that the concept of misa, the concept of passing away, doesn't have to be in a literal sense. If Mashiach comes, but hopefully Mashiach will come today, we don't all have to die. No, we could just we're going to go through a process which is called humbleness. We're going to see, oh my God, I'm ashamed of who I am. I should have done this. I should have done that. And that is just the same. Because at that time, we're going to see the truth. When a person sees the truth, he's going to say, oh my God, where was I till now? How come I didn't realize this? So therefore, when Mashiach comes, whoever's alive is going to be alive. And there's a process. Some people are going to get up right away, which is most people, but it's going to be a short process. What it says about the 40 years, etc., that's a total different thing. It's going to be a very short process, because the moment that Mashiach comes, automatically the concept of death is going to disappear. Death is not something that the Rebbe created when he created the world. When the Rebbe created the world, it did not create death. Adam Rishon was supposed to live. The problem was that Adam Rishon did the Chet Eitzadas, so therefore it brought Misa to the world. The moment we, through our Avodah, are fixing the Chet of Eitzadas, automatically death won't be in the world. So Tchias HaMesim is not a process that the Rebbe has to take the bodies and wake them up. No. The moment the Rebbe takes out death from the world, because it doesn't belong here, automatically everyone is going to get up Tchias HaMesim.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Geulah. I'm going to move on to a bit of a different topic over here. Rabbi Hecht. The Rebbe says we are the 7th generation and we will bring Mashiach. How long does the 7th generation last, and when does the 8th generation begin?
7th generation lasts till we bring the Geulah.
Okay.
Where the Rebbe did him. The Rebbe is our Rebbe. There's no question about it. And the Rebbe is Chai V'Kayim. If you don't believe the Rebbe is Chai V'Kayim, you're living in Disneyland. Because it's so obvious that the Rebbe is Mamish Chai V'Kayim when you look at what's going on in the world today, and you look at what's going on over the course of the years. So we're the 7th generation because we're the 7th generation. As the Rebbe himself said in the Maimer of Basal Gani Tafshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe said it's not mit our villain. We didn't choose to be the 7th generation. We are it, and we are the people, and we are going to make it happen. And we're the Der Achan Shal Golos and the Der Rishon Shal Geulah, and that's just the way it is. Deal with it. Now we have to rise to the occasion and actually make it happen. That's what has to happen. We have to start to see and realize and understand that there's no question about it who we are. The question is, when are we going to finally realize how powerful we really are? We shouldn't be like Gehazi. Hopefully you all learned it in the Navi, who gets handed a stick for Tchias HaMesim by Elisha Navi, and Rahman al-Islan uses it instead to resurrect a dog, instead of resurrecting the child that he was supposed to bring to Tchias HaMesim. Imagine, every morning you wake up, Elisha Hanavi, the Rebbe himself, has handed you a stick and said, take this stick, go out into the world and create Chiyas HaMesim. Every morning. And that's happening to us because we're the Rashvi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hecht. Looks
May
like
I?
Rabbi Grelick wants to add something. Yes, Rabbi Grelick.
While I concur with everything Rabbi Hecht said, I would just like to take it from another angle, if possible, which, again, it doesn't negate. It's exactly the same thing, but from another angle. Generations, I'd like to take a survey. I don't know if you could do that in this program. Does anybody know how many generations were there from Adam Rishon until today? How many generations were there? Is there any way you could do this, Reb Label?
Unfortunately, not under this platform.
What?
Unfortunately, not under this platform.
Okay. There are some people say that there were 1,000 generations from Adam Rishon till now. There are some people that say there were 2,000 generations. Some people say 300. I have a secret for you, look. Bachrim Lach. How many generations are there from Adam Rishon until Levi Garelik? Do you know? My children make a family book for school. The first thing that they do is they have a tree. The first one on the family tree is Adam Rishon, and the last one is they themselves. This is a total of 130 generations. Some generations were 500 years old. Some generations are 25 years. Some generations are 10. We don't go by that. We go generations by the Nasi of that generation. The generation of David HaMelech, how many years was it? Most people don't know, but they don't know. They know there's David, then there's Shlomo, then it continues. And Al Derech said, the Alter Rebbe, Mittel Rebbe, one was the Rebbe for 30 years, one was the Rebbe for 8 years. The Rebbe is the Nasi Ashvi. Until there's no eighth, it's the Rebbe's door. And I would like to guarantee you, there is no eighth. As long as the Rebbe is the Nasi of this generation, that is how long the generation is. In the time of the Alter Rebbe, as long as the Alter Rebbe was around, made no difference how many years. He was the Nasi. That was the generation. Mittel Rebbe was, why is he called Mittel Rebbe? Because he was in between the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek, and there were many Chassidim who saw all three. So he got the name Mittel. So how long is a generation? As long as this is the Rebbe, this is his generation. The Rebbe made it very clear in his first Maimer that we are the Deir Hashvi. We have our Rebbe, our Nasi, which is Deir Hashvi. If Chalila, there's going to be an eighth Rebbe, okay, then we'll deal with it. But don't worry, there won't be an eighth, because the Rebbe made it very clear that this is the last, as Rabbi Hecht made it very clear, the Rebbe clearly told us this is the last generation of Galus, first generation of Geulah. How long is this generation? Until we go into that Beis HaMikdash, it's going to be this generation.
Thank you, Rabbi Grelick. I'm going to keep with you a bit of a touchy question. We had a few people who asked it. So it looks like we have many people who are listening who would like to have this answer. It's no secret that there are Chassidim who believe that the Rebbe is Moshiach and those that believe differently. What is the reasoning behind those who believe that the Rebbe is Moshiach and those who believe differently?
Well, when I grew up, I always heard a very interesting theme. And it said like this: smart people talk about ideas. Simple people talk about things. Narashiv people talk about other people. I never discussed, and Be'ezras Hashem will not discuss, what people say, what people don't say. I discuss ideas. There is an idea that says the Rebbe is Moshiach. There is an idea, perhaps, that says the Rebbe is not Moshiach. Where do these ideas come from? As I mentioned before in the beginning, it's all a question of knowledge. When I hear someone saying the Rebbe is not, this, that, or not in the Rebbe, anything regarding Mashiach, what I do is something very simple. I take this booklet and I ask him, can you tell me what it says in this booklet? If the person tells me what it says in the booklet, gives me a basic summary of what it says in there, then we could talk further. At present, anybody who I had the conversation regarding Mashiach this way or that way, and I saw he's talking more out of his emotions than his brains, I saw they did not learn the subject. As I say in English, ignorance is bliss. A person who knows the subject, who learned the subject, who understands the subject, it's very clear what the issues are. The people who argue is because most of the time, people on both sides of the aisle are not clear in the subject. Like, you imagine if two people are arguing, I ask them a lot of times when there's an argument, let me ask you, there's something called Hilchas Eiruvin. You all know the halachas of Eiruv, where you're allowed to carry on Shabbos. And one of the things that we do for our Eiruv is that we put a stick, which is called a lechi, and then we put a string over it. And I asked them, tell me, if the lechi is 3 tfachim away from a house, but there is a roof that comes down, whatever, is it kosher or not? And they say, I don't know. I didn't learn Hilchas Eiruvin. So I say, so you didn't learn it, but why don't you argue anyways? Because you don't argue on something that you didn't learn. And the same thing is with Mashiach. The reason why people say, the first question you should ask that person is, give me a summary of the Dvar Malchus. If he could give you a summary of the Dvar Malchus, and then based on the Dvar Malchus, he gives you his opinion, then we have to take that seriously and discuss it. But if the person says, well, I learned it a long time ago, don't you remember? Then what this person has to say regarding Mashiach, as nice as it may be, that is not the Mashiach of the Rebbe. There's the Mashiach of the world and the Mashiach of the Rebbe. The Mashiach that the world waited for the last 5,000 years is not the same Mashiach as the one that the Rebbe is talking about. The Rebbe is talking about a total different type of Mashiach. The world looks at a Mashiach, someone who's going to stop all our tzaddis. Every time when someone is ill, they say, oh, Mashiach needs to be here. Mashiach is not coming to take away tzaddis. Mashiach is coming to give us a perfect world, and automatically the tzaddis are going to be taken care of. So therefore, it's hard for me to say what people believe and don't believe, but it's very comfortable for me to say that many, many times the arguments come out because of not knowing the subject. Ignorance.
Thank you very much.
Can I add something?
Because we're limited on time, we only have like 6-7 minutes left, so I do want to try to cover a couple more questions.
I can do this in 30 seconds.
If it's possible, if you can move on. Only because we don't have much. But the next question is for you, Rabbi Hecht. Rabbi Grelik, thank you very much. Rabbi Hecht, sometimes I feel intimidated and scared to talk about it. I don't want to be made fun of. Another reason is I don't know a lot about the topic and don't want to be embarrassed if I am asked or challenged with a question that I won't know the answer to. So just play it safe and keep to myself. So what should I do?
Rabbi Geulah just answered that question, didn't he?
I think what he's asking about is he's speaking with his friends or he's on Miftzayim.
You have to learn the sichos.
One more time?
You have to learn the sichos.
So there's no going about it.
Can I share a personal story? A quick
Please.
personal story? Okay.
But try to keep it short.
I'll keep it very short. At the Kinnis HaShluchim Tavshin Nun Gimel, which is right after the first Chav Zayin Adar, this was a very hotly discussed topic. And they had a session on Sunday where they decided they were going to have 4 speakers, official speakers, on the topic of Mashiach Geulah. And then after those 4 official speakers, they were going to let anybody who wants to say something, because they didn't want to say that these people can speak and those people can't speak, etc. Anybody that has something to say, will be given 2 minutes to talk. That lasted, of course, you turn to the Kinnis HaShluchim and you say, anybody who has something to say can speak for 2 minutes. It went for 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours, that session. Because you give anybody a chance to talk, everybody's going to get up and talk. I personally sat through that year, I sat through the whole 6 hours because I wanted to hear what everybody had to say. And by the time the 6 hours were over, I realized that there's 2 groups here. There's one group of people who are talking about how, by you have to take a chance, soft shoe this a little bit. You have to be careful. You have to understand how to talk to people, etc., etc. That was one group. And that sounded just like me that day. And then there was another whole group of people who stood up, and for the 2 minutes that they had, they opened up a Sefer HaSichos and they read straight out of the Rebbe's words. So one group sounded like me, and the other group was reading what the Rebbe actually said. And after 6 hours of listening to this, that the room was divided into these two groups. One group that sounds like me, and the other group that's reading what the Rebbe says. After 6 hours, even a thick head like mine, or a simpleton, as Rabbi Geulah just pointed out, even a thick head like mine realized, wait a minute, I don't really know the Rebbe's sichos. I don't know them as well as I need to know them. And so that night, that very, very night, I was machlit. I have to quickly buy the Sfarim of the Sichos. I didn't have them in my possession, of Nun Aleph and Beis, and I have to, and the Dvar Malchus, of course, and sit and learn them through and through. Because I'm sounding like somebody who has my own ideas when I'm nothing more than the Rebbe's extended arm. And if I'm going to be the Rebbe's extended arm, I have to be able to repeat and know exactly what the Rebbe says. So if you're not standing strong enough and you're afraid to have a conversation, my advice to you is learn the Rebbe's sichos. I promise you, when you learn the Rebbe's sichos, you won't be afraid to talk to anybody. You won't feel second to anybody. You'll feel strong. You'll feel confident. You're emunah. You're betachen. You'll be ready to roll, and you'll be there. And by the way, I'm not saying it to you so you should be able to answer other people. This is your obligation. You have an obligation. I pointed out this morning by my minion. Emor v'amarta. It's this week's parsha. Your job is to inspire people
Thank you.
Go out and inspire another Jew to inspire another Jew. And you can't do that unless you have the Rebbe's sichos in your hand. Learn. Make a chavrusa with another bacher. Make a chavrusa with your father. Ask your teacher to start a shir in these sichos. Whatever it takes, learn it.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Hecht. I have two questions, and in the limited time that we have, I'm going to give 60 seconds. So I really want to finish up and wrap it up. Rabbi Geulah, is there any connection? I had this from several people. Is there any connection between the current pandemic and Moshiach and Geulah?
I am not that type of person that could do those type of things, because usually I grew up. My first part, the big part of my life was that whenever something happened, I went to the next Fabrengen, and the Rebbe already gave us the connection. But in my humble opinion, there is no question, as I mentioned before, that what we are going through now, the fact of this Zoom, this is only happening because of this epidemic which is happening, because it's the first time that it happened in the whole world. And everybody now is sitting at home, and everybody now has time to sit and learn Torah. What basically is happening in 10 seconds, I got a vignette, a picture from Italy. I'm from it, and my parents went to Italy on Shlichus, so I live with Italy still, where you have the Satan and the Eibishter talking to each other. And the Satan tells the Eibishter, look, I closed down all your shul, all your places of prayer, I closed down. Okay? And the Eibishter says, yeah, and I opened up every single home in the world is turning into a shul. Got it? And this is the best sign that what is happening now is preparing us for the times when Moshiach is going to be revealed, and every single home will turn into a Beis Chabad, will turn into a shul, the way the Rebbe has already started 50 years ago, that every single home must become a Beis Chabad. It only happened to all the houses, regardless of affiliation, whether they are Chabad, not Chabad. Everybody does everything at home, exactly how the Rebbe said it 50 years ago. So there is definitely a positive to this epidemic, because it brought people home, and now people are starting to look, and they know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows when this is going to end. And every average Jew says, yes, Moshiach is going to take care of it.
Thank you very much. I will ask the last question to both of you, and I will ask if you try to keep it to 60 seconds. We'll start with Rabbi Hecht. Rabbi Hecht, what is the most important thing for a kid my age to do in order to bring Moshiach? I'm 12 years old and in 6th grade.
Avas Yisrael. Nothing beats it. There's a kid in your class. You know who he is. Maybe he's in your class. Maybe he's a class above you. Maybe he's a class below you. He's the kid that's completely disenfranchised, that nobody's friends with. You know who he is, and you know quite well who he is. He's the kid nobody's friends with because he's a little weird, he's nerdy, he's this, he's that. Mach nicht aus. That's your mission right now. You will bring Moshiach. When you get off this, whatever this is, this conference, and you call him on the phone and say, how you doing? What's up with you? Let's talk. Let's get together. I'm done.
Thank you, Rabbi Geulah.
I could only say ditto to Rabbi Hecht because that's 100% correct. I would just perhaps add that there's two avodas. There's one avodah with the zulas, with the outside, and that is exactly what Rabbi Hecht spoke about. And then as far you are yourself at night or other times when you're not talking to the person outside, talk to your father, to your mother, to your older brother, to your sister, and learn together the subject of Moshiach in any shape or form. You don't have to go necessarily take out a hard sikha. You could maybe take out a speech of somebody. And when, as Rabbi Hecht discussed before about this, guys, this could be a smartphone and it could work the other way around. Make sure that in your homes, only kosher things are used with modern technology. Only 100% kosher. Anything which is signed off by a Rav or by a Mashpia that this is kosher, that is something that should be used. And this way we are going to witness what the Rambam says about Mashiach based on the pasuk, Umalla ha'aretz deya es Hashem kamayim layam mechasim, that the whole world will be filled with the knowledge of the Eibishter.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi
I'm
Geulah.
going to say what an honor it was to be on a panel with Rabbi Geulah. I've been a fan of Rabbi Geulah since 1973.
Thank you.
Great honor.
Thank you very much, Rabbi
My
Geulah.
honor.
And 770 for the huge Fabrengen. And from there, we'll go to the Beis HaMikdash. But first at 770, let's party.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi Geulah, Rabbi Hecht. Thank you. There's many questions we didn't get to. Maybe another time. But the Iker is out all the questions should be potter. Moshiach should come now. We'll go together in Yerushalayim. Whatever leading us out of Galus to the Geulah Shleima now. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Hatzlacha. Mashiach now.
Kol Tov, bye.